Alright, Shalom. I want to start out by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem, Kakodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom to all the Achaemenid pushing the word of sincerity and the truth. It's Brother Barzar from Great Millstone, Atlanta. I just want to do this lesson on basically never forget, Lord will not just do a continuation on Gadite, Issacharite, Negro, Latinos, Native Americans, history of the torment and the agonizing pain that the so-called white man put on you tribes, man. And I was on World Star, Nigga Star Hip Hop, of course, the feed of all kind of, alternative information. So it's not alternative, excuse me, but it does have alternative information also, but mainly, certain historical points and mainly nigga fights and all kind of ruckus all on his website. But there's one thing stood out to me in particular right here where it speaks about the 1985 Philadelphia police dropping bombs on black neighborhoods, and this is one of many instances where the so-called white man truly shows his horns to the people. See, this devil, he's great at covering up his hatred, covering up his truly evil, sadistic, satanic nature. But at certain times where you'll get a glimpse and it'll show how how resilient this man is at wiping you tribes out, man. If it comes down to it, he will pull the trigger. If it comes down to it, he will use his disease warfare. He'll kill children. He'll destroy animals, crops, anything that gets in the way of the production of white society. And this is a video brothers could watch. If brothers haven't seen it, definitely check it out. Scripture say never trust thy enemy, and you have to get these visuals. In history, it was only in the 80s, 85. Not too long ago. And these visuals give you a clear indication of who your enemy is, man. And it's funny because it was this Jake that came to the camp, and he was just trying to get he was trying to really stomach who the enemies of the Israelites were, and we were telling her, the so-called white man is your enemy, and it's not because we just chose the white man to be our enemy. No, it's been an ongoing hatred. It's since the womb, from the womb to the tomb, as the saying go. It's always been turmoil, and it's always been a frustration of the two nations, the so-called blacks and the so-called whites, from the beginning of time to the medieval times to the times we're in now. It's always been a back and forth scuffle between these two people, and it will never stop until there's a ultimate victor, and we know the victor through biblical keys that Jacob will reign supreme. Second Ezra 6 and 9. For Jacob is the end of the world. For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it thereof. But I'm gonna go to the article, but it says, let's go to the point. May 13th, 1985, the bombing of Move. It says, when police dropped a bomb on a quiet Philadelphia neighborhood by Alex Q. Arbuckle. You see Jake in their pro-black era, basically, standing in the form of unity out there in Philly. So I'm going to continue. It says, Move members in front of their original headquarters in the Polton Village area of Philadelphia. So it says, drop a bomb on a residential area. I never in my life heard of that. It's like Vietnam. Steve Harmon, neighborhood resident. It says the Black Liberation Group Move was founded in 1972 by John Africa, born Vincent Leopard, living communally in a house in West Philly. Members of a Move all challenged their surname in Africa, shunned modern technology and materialism, and preached support of animal rights, revolution, and a return to nature. Right, and when I was reading about this Move movement of these Africans, because I never heard of them, to be honest, this liberation group, but reading this article, it first thing I relate back to is Wall Street. Black Wall Street, where the so-called blacks, came together and they pushed out white ideologies and white practices, and they embraced black culture. And that is a red light for the so-called white man. He will never allow so-called black communities to be independent and enfranchise themselves from uh, basically other communities around them. Basically, start to become an independent entity. So it says their first conflict with law enforcement occurred in 1978 when police tried to evict them from their house. A firefight erupted, killing one police officer. Firefight erupted, killing one police officer and injuring several more on both sides. 9 members of the group were sentenced to 100 years in prison for the officer killing. In 1981, the group moved to a row house on Osage Ave. So it says the city administration discounted negotiations as a method of resolving the problem. Any attempted negotiations were haphazard and uncoordinated. I want to really jump to the point because we're just going into the building up of this group and all kind of situations that occurred. Matter of fact, I'm gonna read a little bit more because you see the visuals of actually what went on, because this was devastating. This was something that was very, very big, and you don't hear about this. You don't hear about this. I never heard about this a day in my life. And us brothers. You might have brothers in different camps that have heard about this. Me personally, I never read on this. And I'm not to toot my horn, but I look into information, so-called black information and things of that nature. We all do. Our bread and butter is to study and research, and that just shows you how great this man is at covering up history, because this was only occurred in the 80s, you know, and for this history to be covered up, and it was only a couple of decades ago. That shows you how this man will blatantly hide the destructive nature of himself. So it says at their new headquarters, MOVE members boarded up the windows, built the fortified rooftop bunkers, and broadcasted profanity-laced political lectures with bullhorns at all hours. Drawing complaints from neighbors, members continued to rack up violations from contempt of court to illegal possession of firearms, to the point where they were considered a terrorist organization by mayor and police commissioners. On the morning of May 13, 1985, the police moved on the house. Arriving with arrest warrants for 4 residents of the house, the police ordered them to come out peacefully before long shooting began. In response to gunfire from inside the house, more than 500 police officers discharged over 10,000 rounds of ammunition in 90 minutes. The house was hit with high-pressure fire hoses and tear gas, but MOVE did not surrender. And this was a foolish, group. The Lord told Peter 2,000 years ago to put down the sword, for all that live by the sword shall die by the sword. This white man's blessing, going into Genesis 27th chapter, was the sword, was his artillery, was his firearms. So you can't fight fire with fire. Our power is the spirit of Yahweh Shema Shah, all right, through the words. Hebrews 4:12. That's the sword that we swing and that we wield in this style of warfare. Because when you try to take it there with this devil, look how many police officers they dispatched. 500. They shot over 10,000 rounds of ammunition within a 90-minute segment, and they had a lot more. They could have brought a lot more heat, a lot more danger to the residents at that area. MOVE, but that was just enough. So continuing on, despite pleas for de-escalation to the mayor from the city council president Joseph Coleman and state senator Hardy Williams, police commissioner George Sambros gave the order to bomb the house. So you had the police commissioner at the time that said, just drop bombs on them niggas, And I'm gonna continue on, and you can see the aftermath. And it's totally vanquished. That area is desecrated. You probably had civilians, and they said that you had innocent civilians that was in the crosshairs, and you see the results of it. The mayor didn't give a hell. But continuing on, the fortified MOVE headquarters is hit with a deluge of water by firefighters. The mayor's failure to call a halt to the operation on May 12th, when he knew that children were in the house, was grossly negligent and clearly risked the lives of those children. So he knew, the mayor at that time knew that it was children in that house, and they didn't decide to halt the dropping of bombs and basically the pressure they put on the area. They still proceeded. So continuing on, it said a man flees for safety with a child while police assault the MOVE headquarters. And you see it. They taking pictures. They didn't give a hell about this Negro. They wasn't trying to walk him off safely. When they was in the midst of fire, they looked at Jake as an enemy, man. All Jakes. So continuing on, the mayor abdicated his relationship as a leader when, after midday, he permitted a clearly failed operation to continue, which posed great risk to life and property. A little bit more, but at 5:28 p.m., a satchel bomb composed of FBI-supplied C4 and Tovex TRS, a dynamite substitute on a 45-second timer, was dropped from a state police helicopter, detonating near the fortified pillbox on the roof of the house. Within minutes, a fire had consumed the roof and had begun to spread. Firefighters, already fearful of being shot at by MOVE members, were told to let the fire burn. The blaze raged out of control, spreading down the block of row houses and hopping the narrow streets. So you see the occurrence of it. Like I said, smoke billows from the spreading fire after the bombing. You see the fire. You see how devastating this situation was, and that's the main thing I'm gonna read. Brothers could of course dive into it, to the history of it a little bit more. Like I said, this is the nature of your enemy, so-called white man, and he will, by any means necessary, stay in rulership. And you got to think in these times now, with the prophets of Yahweh Shem Yahushua preaching his word and going to this information, pushing out those exposés. This devil has something in his sleeve, even worse than the Philadelphia bombings. All right, even worse than Black Wall Street, even worse than slavery. They already have the legislations passed, all these different things in the books, and they're ready to execute. All right. So this is Sirach 12:10. Never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. Right. So the scriptures tell you, plain as day, to not trust your enemy. It doesn't say to make an oath with him. It doesn't say to try to be compliant and conform with the ideals that he's presenting, come to a resolution. It says don't trust his goddamn ass, man. All right. It says basically beware of him. So, and it says, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. So it don't matter how much he polishes himself. It doesn't matter how much these politicians present themselves with smoothful and very pacifying words. Their wickedness is covered. And I'm going to go into that scripture in Proverbs, whose hatred is covered by deceit. Verse 11, though he humble himself, and these devils are very, very humble. You probably had the mayor apologize. They probably tried to refurbish the community to a certain degree, pass out turkeys or whatever to try to keep the people at bay. Or maybe not. Later on in history, they try to put welfare in these different cities and, up the ante of keeping Jake asleep. And that's him crouching down and humbling himself. So it says, and go crouching, yet take good heed and beware of him. So it said, even though he's humbling himself and is crouching, you still don't trust his ass, man. So what's up with you Jakes in 2019, man, that's looking to give this white man a pass for all the ass kickings that he gave us throughout the century, so to speak. The 100 years time spans, couple hundred years. If you really want to get technical, it's been longer than that. Going back to the Greeks, if you want to add up the history of this devil, the Ottoman Empire, the Greek Empire, the Roman Empire, and this American kingdom, it's been hundreds of years, man, that this devil has showed his ill nature. So continuing on, yet take good heed and beware of him, and thou shalt be unto him as if thou hast wiped the looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust have not been altogether wiped away. All right. So let me get that scripture also that I had quoted through the Spirit. You know, because this isn't a time for us to try to get with this devil and you know, try to figure out a way to get in the government and befriend this man. This man is the enemy. All right, and you have to understand that, you know, whatever you do, and you know, of course, these guys from the movement, that so-called black organization, they were dumb as all hell. I'm gonna say it plain as day, for thinking that they could fight this man fire with fire. You know, the white man has way more guns than you. They didn't try to. They weren't compliant. The men before them already showed. After the killing of a cop, multiple members got over 100 years, and they kept progressing with you know, the fight. You know, they kept progressing with carnal instruments to try to take over, and they couldn't even take over a neighborhood, man. Let alone a city. You know, how the hell, you know, a state? They didn't get far at all. You know, and you know, that just shows you the stupidity. A lot of you blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, you believe that racking up on guns is gonna get you far. This so-called white man registers all his artillery. All right, he knows illegal guns that's being purchased. He knows all your movements. That's why everything has a barcode on it. Everything is registered through your license, registered through your accounts, and all these different things. And that's not how we're gonna win this battle, so to speak. The battle is won through the Spirit. All right, Ephesians 6:10. All right, this is Proverbs 26:25. I'll start at 24. He that hateth dissembleth with his lips, and layeth up deceit within him. So he that has a he that has hate amongst his neighbor, what does it says? He dissembleth with his lips, and layeth up deceit within him. He's not going to show his deception. He's going to act innocent. He's going to act kind. He's going to act courteous. You know, and to do what? Lower your guard, to lower who you are, so that he could have opportunity to stab you in the back. And that's the easiest way to take an enemy down. You know, whenever you go into war and both of your guards are up, it's gonna be a frustration. It's gonna be a lot of energy, because both of y'all are gonna use y'all wits. Y'all are gonna be at the peak of y'all's essence. And the so-called white man doesn't like fighting that way. He likes to save his guns. He likes to save all these things and take you out quickly. So he's gonna rely on different methods, red herrings and things of that nature, to take you out. So continuing on, he says when he speaketh fair, believe him not, for there are 7 abominations in his heart. That word 7 goes into completion. So he has complete demons in him, whose hatred is covered by deceit. His wickedness shall be showed before the whole congregation. All right, and the congregation represents Israel. All right, we are the congregation, and we're spectating this devil from these phones, man. Through these phones, through the internet, we're looking at everything he's doing. We're looking at his pattern. We're looking at his movements. We're reading the history. We're looking at the political legislations that's being passed, and it's showing all that this so-called white man is the devil. All right, he is the enemy, and you blacks, you Latinos, and Native Americans have to wake up to that fact in order to actually repel the negativity and all the wickedness that this man is coming with. But you know, that's all I have for you, Akim. I just wanted to go into the 1985 Philadelphia bombings. It was something that stuck out to me. It was, you know, an eye opener. You know, of course, going into the history is always an eye opener. But the more and more you read it, it opens your eyes more and more to the wickedness of this devil, man. You know. So I want to end by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Shemi Awashai, by Shimmer Kakodash. Double honors to the apostle and others, a great millstone. Shalom, Akim.